Have you ever seen someone humiliate another person without realizing who they really are? Before we start, go down to the comments and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Because this story isn't just about money or status, it's about a moment, a single decision, one mistake that flips everything. It happened in one of the richest neighborhoods in the city. Quiet streets, perfect houses, everything looked controlled, perfect. But in just a few minutes, that illusion shattered completely. A massive mansion stood behind a tall iron gate, stretching across a wide, perfectly maintained property. The driveway was spotless, leading up to a grand entrance with polished marble steps and glass doors that reflected the afternoon sun. Every detail of the house looked expensive, intentional, controlled. The hedges were trimmed with precision, the lawn cut evenly, not a single imperfection visible anywhere. Parked along the side were luxury cars, their surfaces shining under the light, untouched. Like everything around them existed in a world where nothing was ever out of place. The street itself was quiet, no noise, no chaos. Just a calm, almost artificial kind of silence that only exists in places where everything is managed, monitored, and maintained. A place where people don't expect problems, because they rarely see them. Near the front gate stood a woman. She didn't move much. She didn't pace, she didn't check her phone. She simply stood there, holding a small bag in her hand. Her posture straight, her expression calm. Her clothes were simple, clean, but not expensive. No brands, no status. Just practical, modest, unnoticeable to the kind of people who lived in houses like this. But there was something about her stillness that didn't match the assumptions someone might make at first glance. She wasn't lost. She wasn't unsure. She wasn't waiting for permission. She was waiting because she knew exactly why she was there. She looked at the gate, then briefly at the house beyond it, her eyes steady, like she had already pictured herself inside. Like this wasn't new to her, like she belonged there, even if no one else realized it yet. A faint breeze moved through the trees, rustling the leaves softly, breaking the silence for a moment before everything returned to stillness again. From a distance, it looked like nothing was happening. Just a quiet afternoon. A woman standing at a gate. A normal moment in a perfect neighborhood. But under that surface, something was building. Because sometimes the biggest shifts don't start with noise. They start with a single person, standing exactly where they're supposed to be, while everyone else assumes they're not. The silence broke when the front door of the mansion opened. It didn't open loudly, but in a place that quiet, even that small sound felt sharp. A woman stepped out onto the marble steps, dressed in a fitted designer outfit, her hair perfectly styled, sunglasses resting in one hand like an accessory meant to remind everyone exactly who she was. She paused at the entrance for a second, looking over the driveway with the calm confidence of someone used to being obeyed. Then her eyes reached the front gate, and she saw the nanny. At first, she simply stared, as if trying to understand why someone like that would be standing outside her home. Her expression shifted slowly. Confusion first, then irritation, then judgment. She walked down the steps, her heels clicking against the stone with a sharp rhythm that made the entire scene feel colder. The nanny noticed her approaching and turned politely, keeping her hands together near the small bag she carried. She didn't smile too much. She didn't act nervous. She simply waited. The rich woman stopped several feet away, close enough to make her presence felt, but far enough to make the distance between them obvious. "Excuse me?" she said, her voice cold, controlled, and already filled with suspicion. The nanny looked at her calmly. "Good afternoon, ma'am." That polite answer only seemed to annoy the woman more. She tilted her head slightly, looking the nanny up and down, starting at her shoes, then her clothes, then her face, like she was inspecting a problem rather than speaking to a person. "Can I help you?" she asked, but the tone made it clear she didn't mean help. She meant explain yourself. The nanny nodded once. "Yes, I'm here for work." The rich woman blinked, then gave a small laugh under her breath, short and sharp, without warmth. "Work?" she repeated. "Here?" The nanny remained composed. "Yes, ma'am. I was told to arrive this afternoon." The woman's lips tightened. She glanced back toward the mansion, then at the gate again, as if the idea itself offended her. I don't think so, she said. The nanny's expression didn't change, but her grip on the bag tightened slightly. There may be a misunderstanding, she said carefully. I was given this address. The rich woman stepped closer now, her voice lowering but becoming more dangerous. This is a private property. The nanny nodded. I understand. No, the woman said, cutting her off. I don't think you do. A gardener working near the hedges slowed down, his clippers lowering in his hand. Across the street, a neighbor who had been getting into her car stopped with one hand on the door, watching quietly. The nanny noticed the attention building around them, but she didn't look away from the woman. I'm not here to cause any trouble, she said. I'm just waiting for the person who hired me. The rich woman's face hardened immediately. The person who hired you, she repeated, almost mocking the words. And who exactly would that be? The nanny hesitated for just a second, not because she didn't know, but because she could already feel where this was going. The owner of the house, she said. The woman stared at her. Then slowly, almost dramatically, she smiled. Not a kind smile, a smile full of disbelief. The owner of the house, she repeated. That's interesting. She crossed her arms, standing taller, using her posture like a weapon. Because I live here, the nanny answered quietly. I understand. Do you? The woman snapped. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you walked up to a mansion, decided you had some story ready, and expected someone to just let you in. The words were loud enough now for the gardener to hear clearly. The neighbor across the street stopped pretending not to watch. The calm afternoon had started to change. The perfect silence of the neighborhood had cracked, and in its place came the uncomfortable tension of public judgment. The nanny took a slow breath. Ma'am, I have documentation if you'd like to see it. But the woman lifted one hand, stopping her before she could reach into her bag. Don't, she said sharply. Do not start pulling things out of that bag. The nanny froze, her hand still near the strap. For the first time, a flicker of pain crossed her face. Not fear exactly, but the quiet hurt of being treated like a threat before being treated like a human being. The rich woman saw that flicker and mistook it for weakness. I know how this works, she continued. People show up, claim they were hired, pretend there's some confusion, and then suddenly something goes missing. The nanny's eyes lifted back to hers, steady but colder now. I haven't entered the property. And you won't, the woman said immediately. Not while I'm here. The nanny looked through the gate at the mansion, then back at her. I was asked to come here today. By who? The woman demanded. Give me a name. The nanny remained silent for half a second too long. That tiny pause was all the woman needed. She turned slightly toward the gardener, then toward the neighbor, as if gathering witnesses for her performance. See, she said, this is exactly what I mean. The nanny spoke again, still calm. I can explain everything if you allow me to. No, the woman interrupted. You can explain it from the sidewalk. She pointed toward the street with two fingers, as if ordering away a servant. Move away from my gate. The nanny didn't move. Not because she wanted conflict, not because she wanted to embarrass anyone, but because leaving would mean accepting a lie. She stood exactly where she was, shoulders straight, bag at her side, eyes calm. That stillness irritated the woman more than any argument could have. Are you refusing to leave? She asked, her voice rising. The nanny answered softly. I'm refusing to be treated like I'm doing something wrong. The gardener looked up fully now. The neighbor's mouth opened slightly. The rich woman's face flushed with anger. She wasn't used to being answered that way, especially not by someone she had already decided was beneath her. You need to watch your tone, she said. The nanny didn't blink. My tone is respectful. Your presence isn't, the woman snapped. And there it was. The truth beneath everything. Not the gate, not the address, not the paperwork. Her presence. The simple fact that she was standing there. The nanny absorbed the words in silence, and for a moment the rich woman seemed pleased, as if she had finally put her in her place. But the nanny didn't lower her head. She didn't apologize, she only said, You don't know who I am. The woman laughed again, louder this time. I know enough. That line hung between them, ugly and confident. The nanny looked at her for a long moment, and something in her expression changed. It wasn't anger. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. Like she had just understood exactly what kind of person she was dealing with. The woman reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. "I'm calling security," she said. The nanny didn't stop her. She didn't argue. She didn't plead. She simply stepped back half a step, not away from the gate, but enough to show she wasn't a threat. The rich woman dialed, her eyes never leaving the nanny's face. "Yes," she said into the phone, suddenly calm again, almost satisfied. "There's a woman at my front gate refusing to leave. She claims she works here." A pause, her eyes narrowed. "No, I don't know her." Another pause. "Send someone now." She ended the call and lowered the phone slowly, a victorious look settling over her face. "Now we'll see what happens," she said. The nanny stood quietly, the mansion behind the gate, the street behind her, and eyes from every direction beginning to gather. She knew the situation had just moved into something bigger. The rich woman thought security would prove her right. She thought the gate, the house, the neighborhood, and every symbol of wealth around her were on her side. But what she didn't know was that the woman she was trying to remove wasn't waiting for permission to enter someone else's life. She was waiting to step into her own. The rich woman stood near the gate with her phone still in her hand, breathing through her nose like she was trying to control herself. But her eyes gave away how angry she was. She wasn't just irritated anymore. She was offended. Offended that this woman had not left when told. Offended that she had answered back calmly. Offended that she had stayed standing in front of a mansion the rich woman believed was hers to protect, hers to control, hers to decide who was allowed to approach. The nanny remained quiet, holding her small bag at her side, her posture straight but not aggressive. She looked calm from the outside, but the way her fingers pressed against the handle of the bag showed that she felt the pressure. She knew people were watching now. The gardener had completely stopped working. The neighbor across the street had stepped away from her car and was pretending to check something in her purse while clearly listening. A delivery driver slowed near the curb, looking over as the tension grew. The rich woman noticed all of it, and instead of calming down, it made her voice sharper. She wanted an audience now. She wanted people to see her as the one in charge. "You know," she said, taking one slow step closer to the gate, "people like you always think politeness is enough to get through doors that were never meant for you." The nanny's expression changed slightly, just a small tightening around the eyes. But she didn't answer. The woman continued louder now. "You come here with some story, some little bag, acting like you have an appointment, and I'm supposed to just believe you?" She laughed, turning her head slightly as if sharing the joke with everyone around. No one laughed with her. The nanny took a slow breath. "Ma'am, I have already told you. I was invited here." The rich woman's smile vanished. "Invited?" she repeated. "To my home?" The nanny opened her mouth to answer, but the woman cut her off again. "No, let me make something very clear to you. This neighborhood has rules. This property has rules. And people don't just appear at my gate and expect to be welcomed inside." The word people came out with a weight that everyone heard. The gardener looked down. The neighbor's face stiffened. Even the delivery driver seemed uncomfortable. The nanny held the woman's stare, her voice still quiet. "I understand rules. I also understand when someone is making assumptions." That sentence made the rich woman's eyes flash. "Assumptions?" she snapped. "I'm making assumptions because I don't want a stranger wandering around my property?" She stepped closer again, now standing just inches from the gate bars. "Look at yourself. Do you honestly think you look like someone who belongs in this house?" The words landed like a slap. The nanny didn't move, but something in the air changed. The public nature of it made it worse. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was humiliation. The rich woman was no longer asking questions. She was performing judgment. She looked down at the nanny's shoes, then at her modest clothes, then at the small bag in her hand. "Where did you even come from?" she asked coldly. "Who sent you here? Some agency? Some friend of a friend? Or did you just see a nice house and decide today was your lucky day?" The nanny's jaw tightened. "That is not what happened." "Then prove it," the woman said. "Tell me who hired you." The nanny paused, choosing her words carefully. "The person who owns this property." The woman threw her head back slightly, laughing in disbelief. "You keep saying that like it means something." She pointed at the mansion behind her. "I live here. My family lives here. My children sleep here. And you expect me to let a stranger near them because she claims she was hired? The nanny's voice softened, but it didn't weaken. I would never harm a child. The woman leaned forward slightly. You don't get to decide what I should trust. The nanny looked at her for a long second. No, but you could have asked before treating me this way. That made the rich woman's face harden completely. Treating you this way? She repeated. You are standing outside my gate, refusing to leave, and now you want to play victim? Her voice rose. This is exactly the problem. You people always turn everything into disrespect when someone says no. A silence followed, heavy and uncomfortable. The phrase hung there, impossible to ignore. The nanny finally lowered her eyes, not because she was ashamed, but because she was forcing herself not to react. Her hand tightened on the bag strap again. For the first time, her calm looked painful. The rich woman saw the reaction and mistook it for victory. She folded her arms and tilted her chin up. That's better, she said. Now listen carefully. When security gets here, you're going to leave quietly. You're not going to make a scene. You're not going to argue. And you're definitely not going to step 1 foot through this gate. The nanny slowly lifted her eyes again. You're already making the scene, she said. The gardener's head snapped up. The neighbor's eyes widened. The rich woman went still. For 1 second, pure disbelief crossed her face, like she could not comprehend that the nanny was still speaking with dignity after everything. Then anger rushed back in. Excuse me, she said, voice low and dangerous. The nanny didn't repeat herself. She didn't need to. The woman looked around at the people watching, and her embarrassment quickly turned into cruelty. You want a scene? She said. Fine. Let's make sure everyone understands. She turned slightly toward the neighbor, raising her voice. This woman showed up at my gate claiming she works here. No identification, no confirmation, nothing. And now she refuses to leave. The nanny spoke quietly. That is not true. Don't interrupt me, the woman snapped. Then she turned back toward her. You don't get to stand here and lecture me about manners when you're the one trespassing. The nanny looked past her through the gate toward the mansion. Her expression was unreadable, calm but distant. The rich woman followed her gaze and became even more irritated. Stop looking at my house, she said. It's not yours. The nanny looked back at her. Are you sure about that? The question was quiet, almost too quiet, but the effect was immediate. The woman froze, not because she understood, but because the confidence in the nanny's voice didn't match someone who was bluffing. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face, but she buried it quickly under anger. I don't know what game you think you're playing, she said, but it ends now. She stepped away from the gate and pointed toward the sidewalk. Move over there, away from the entrance. The nanny didn't move. I will wait here. You will wait where I tell you to wait. No, the nanny said softly. I won't. The simplicity of it stunned everyone. The rich woman's face flushed deep red. Her fingers tightened around her phone. She took another step forward, close enough that the iron bars were the only thing separating them. Do you understand who you're talking to? She hissed. The nanny held her gaze. Do you? For a moment, nothing moved. The wind passed softly through the hedges. A car rolled by slowly, then continued down the street. The whole neighborhood seemed to pause around them. The rich woman's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out immediately. She wasn't used to this. Not resistance, not calm resistance. Not from someone she had already placed beneath her in her mind. Then from down the street, the low sound of an approaching vehicle broke the silence. A black security car turned the corner and moved toward the mansion. The rich woman's expression changed instantly. Relief, satisfaction, control returning. She looked back at the nanny with a cold smile. Good, she said. Now you'll learn what happens when you refuse to leave. The nanny turned her head slightly, watching the security car approach. Her face remained calm, but deep in her eyes there was something different now. Not fear, not worry, patience, because she knew the truth, and every cruel word the woman had spoken was about to come back to her. The black security vehicle slowed as it approached the gate, its engine humming low before coming to a controlled stop right in front of the mansion. The presence of the car alone changed the energy in the air. What had been tension now felt like something official. Final. Two security guards stepped out, both in uniform, their movements precise, professional, used to handling situations without emotion. One of them adjusted his jacket slightly as they walked toward the gate, scanning the scene quickly. The rich woman straightened immediately, her posture sharpening, her chin lifting slightly higher, as if the arrival of security had restored her authority completely. She didn't wait for them to ask anything. "Finally," she said, her voice filled with controlled frustration. "She's been standing here refusing to leave." The guards exchanged a quick glance, then looked toward the nanny. She stood exactly where she had been the entire time. Calm, still, composed. No sudden movements. No attempt to explain herself yet. Just presence. The first guard stepped closer to the gate, his tone firm but neutral. "Ma'am, we received a report about trespassing. Can you tell me what's going on?" The rich woman pointed immediately, not even looking at the nanny anymore. "She showed up at my gate claiming she works here. I told her to leave. She refused." The second guard looked at the nanny now, studying her expression, her posture, the bag in her hand. Nothing about her looked threatening. Nothing about her looked unstable. But procedure was procedure. "Ma'am," he said to the nanny, "we're going to need you to step away from the property." The nanny met his eyes calmly. "I'm here for work." The guard paused slightly, not convinced, but not aggressive either. "Do you have any proof of that?" The rich woman rolled her eyes loudly, crossing her arms again. "Oh, this should be interesting." The nanny didn't react to the sarcasm. She slowly moved one hand toward her bag, making sure the movement was visible, controlled, non-threatening. "I have documentation," she said quietly. The guards watched carefully as she opened the bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She extended it toward the guard through the bars of the gate. He hesitated for half a second, then took it. The rich woman leaned in slightly, trying to see over his shoulder. The guard unfolded the document and began reading. His eyes moved across the page quickly at first, then slower. His expression shifted, subtle but noticeable. His posture straightened slightly. The second guard noticed it immediately. "What is it?" he asked quietly. The first guard didn't answer right away. He kept reading, then glanced up at the nanny, then back at the paper. Something didn't match what he had expected. "Ma'am," he said, turning slightly toward the rich woman, his tone no longer as confident. "Her name is listed here." The rich woman frowned. "Listed where?" she snapped. "On the employment contract," the guard replied. The silence that followed was brief but heavy. The rich woman's expression hardened instantly. "That's not possible," she said. She stepped forward and reached through the bars, grabbing the document from the guard's hand with quick, irritated movement. "Let me see that." She unfolded it again and read it herself. Her eyes scanned the lines rapidly. Her lips pressed together. She read it again, slower this time. Her confidence didn't disappear yet, but it wavered, just slightly. "This isn't signed by me," she said sharply, looking up. The nanny nodded calmly. "It's signed by the property owner." The guard's eyes shifted between them. The rich woman gave a short, almost relieved laugh, like she had found her argument again. "Exactly," she said. "Which is me." The nanny looked at her for a long moment, then spoke, quietly but clearly. "No." That single word changed the air again. The guards exchanged another glance. The gardener stopped pretending to work completely. The neighbor leaned closer to the fence. The rich woman's smile faded. "Excuse me?" she said slowly. The nanny didn't raise her voice. "You're not the owner." The statement landed like something solid, real, not an argument, a fact. The rich woman stared at her mind trying to reject what she had just heard. "That's ridiculous," she said. "I live here." "That doesn't mean you own it," the nanny replied. The second guard shifted his weight slightly, his attention now fully focused. The situation was no longer simple. The rich woman looked back down at the document, then at the nanny, then at the guards. Her control was slipping, and she could feel it. "This is some kind of mistake," she said, her voice tighter now. "People don't just show up with fake papers and expect me to believe them." The nanny reached into her bag again, slower this time, more deliberate. The guards watched closely. The rich woman didn't speak. She just stared, waiting to prove herself right. The nanny pulled out another document, thicker, Official. She handed it to the first guard. He took it carefully this time, already more cautious. He opened it, and this time, his entire posture changed. His eyes widened slightly. He read the first page, then flipped to the second, then back again. The silence stretched longer now. The second guard leaned in. "What does it say?" he asked quietly. The first guard swallowed slightly before answering. "This property was transferred." The rich woman's head snapped up. "Transferred?" The guard nodded slowly, still reading. "Ownership changed yesterday." The words hung in the air like something irreversible. The rich woman took a step back without realizing it. Her hand loosened around the first document. "That's not possible," she said, but her voice had already changed. It wasn't sharp anymore. It wasn't confident. It was uncertain. The guard looked up at the nanny again, this time not as someone to remove, but as someone to understand. And for the first time since they arrived, the question in the air wasn't, "Why is she here?" It was, "Who is she?" The air around the gate became unnaturally still, like even the environment itself was waiting for what would happen next. The document remained in the guard's hands, but now it no longer looked like just a piece of paper. It looked like something that had the power to completely change the situation. The rich woman stood frozen for a second, her eyes locked on the guard's face, searching for any sign that this was a mistake, a misunderstanding, something she could dismiss and regain control. But the guard wasn't dismissing it. He was reading carefully, slowly, taking it seriously, and that alone made everything worse. "Let me see that," she said sharply, stepping forward again, her voice trying to regain authority. The guard hesitated this time. That hesitation was new. Just seconds ago, he had followed her instructions without question. Now there was a pause, a decision. He handed the document back, but more carefully, like it mattered who held it. The woman grabbed it, her fingers tightening around the edges as she scanned the text again. Faster now, almost desperately. Her eyes moved from line to line, then back again, trying to find something she could reject, something she could prove wrong. But the more she read, the more her expression changed. The confidence in her posture started to crack. Her shoulders lowered slightly, her breathing became uneven. "This doesn't make any sense," she said, but the words sounded weaker than before. The nanny stood quietly watching her, not with satisfaction, not with pride, just calm certainty, like she had already known how this moment would unfold. The guards exchanged another glance, their attention now fully on the nanny. The second guard spoke quietly. "Ma'am, is your name listed here?" The nanny nodded once. "Yes." The guard looked back at the paper, confirming it. "It matches." The rich woman shook her head quickly. "No, no, this is wrong. This has to be wrong." She looked at the nanny again, but this time there was no judgment in her eyes, only confusion. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice no longer sharp but strained. The nanny held her gaze. "I told you," she said quietly. "I'm the one who owns this property." The words didn't come out louder than before. They didn't need to. They landed with more force than anything else she had said. The gardener took a step back unconsciously. The neighbor's hand moved to her mouth. The entire scene shifted in an instant. The rich woman's lips parted, but no words came out. She looked down at the paper again, then at the mansion behind the gate, then back at the nanny. Her reality didn't match what she was seeing, and that disconnect broke her confidence completely. "That's impossible," she whispered. The nanny tilted her head slightly. "Is it?" The silence stretched again, heavier now, filled with realization. The guard cleared his throat slightly, adjusting his posture. "Ma'am, the documents appear to be valid." That sentence sealed it, not completely in her mind yet, but enough to break her control. The rich woman took another small step back, her grip on the document loosening further. "But I live here," she said quietly, almost to herself now. "I've always lived here." The nanny nodded once. "Yes," she said, "you lived here." The correction was small, but devastating. The difference between present and past landed like a final confirmation. The woman's eyes widened slightly. The timeline clicked. The transfer, the paperwork, the delay in information. Everything she hadn't known suddenly mattered. The nanny took a small step forward toward the gate, not aggressively, not emotionally, just enough to shift her position from someone waiting to someone arriving. I came today to introduce myself, she said, and to begin work here. The guard immediately stepped toward the lock, instinctively responding to her presence now. But he paused for a second, glancing at the rich woman, unsure of the final authority. That hesitation lasted only a moment, because the authority had already changed. The nanny looked at the gate calmly. You can open it. The guard nodded and moved to unlock it without another question. The sound of the lock clicking echoed louder than it should have. Because it wasn't just a gate opening, it was the moment everything officially flipped. The rich woman stood completely still, watching it happen, unable to stop it, unable to speak, unable to hold on to the control she had just minutes ago. The gate slowly began to open, and for the first time, the woman who had been standing outside wasn't the one who didn't belong anymore. The gate opened slowly, the metal bars sliding apart with a low, mechanical sound that seemed far louder than it should have been. It wasn't just a gate opening anymore. It was a line being crossed, a boundary shifting, a reality breaking. The nanny stood still for a second before stepping forward, not rushing, not hesitating, just moving with quiet certainty. Her steps were calm, controlled, like she had walked this path 1,000 times before, even though to everyone else, this was the first time they were truly seeing her. The guards immediately stepped slightly aside, creating space without being told. Their posture changed completely, shoulders straighter, movements more respectful. Their attention no longer on removing her, but on allowing her through. The same men who had just moments ago asked her to leave now treated her presence like something that belonged. The rich woman didn't move. She stood frozen just outside the gate, the document still in her hand, her eyes following the nanny as she stepped inside the property. Each step the nanny took seemed to push the rich woman further out of control, further out of certainty, further out of the position she had just confidently claimed. The gravel under the nanny's feet made a soft sound as she walked forward, passing through the gate as if it had always been meant to open for her. The air felt different now, heavier, quieter. The gardener lowered his gaze, stepping slightly aside, his body language shifting from casual observation to quiet respect. The neighbor across the street no longer tried to hide her attention. She stood still, watching openly now, her expression a mix of shock and disbelief. The rich woman finally blinked, like her body was catching up to what had just happened. Wait, she said, her voice breaking slightly, not loud, not commanding anymore, just uncertain. The nanny stopped. She didn't turn immediately. She let the silence sit for a second longer, letting the weight of the moment settle fully. Then slowly she turned back. Her expression remained calm. No anger, no triumph, just control. The rich woman took a small step forward, but she didn't cross the line of the gate. Not anymore. Something in her understood that the space had changed. There has to be some mistake, she said, her voice lower now, almost careful. No one told me anything about this. The nanny looked at her steadily. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. The words were simple, but final. The rich woman swallowed, her eyes flicking toward the guards, then back to the nanny. You're saying, this is your house? She asked. The nanny nodded once. Yes. Silence followed again. But this silence was different. Not tension, not conflict, realization. The rich woman's shoulders dropped slightly, her posture losing its sharp edges. She looked smaller now, less certain. I didn't know, she said quietly. The nanny held her gaze. No, she replied, you didn't. The difference in tone was subtle, but it carried meaning, not accusation, not forgiveness, just truth. The rich woman looked down at the document in her hands again, as if seeing it for the first time, then slowly lowered it. Her fingers trembled slightly. The confidence she had just minutes ago, gone, replaced by something unfamiliar. Regret, embarrassment, exposure. The nanny took a step closer, not aggressively, but enough to stand fully inside the space that now belonged to her. The distance between them had changed. Before, the nanny had been outside, being judged. Now she stood inside, being understood. You told me I didn't belong here, the nanny said calmly. The rich woman looked up, her eyes uncertain. I, she tried to speak, but the words didn't come. The nanny continued, her voice steady. You didn't ask who I was. You didn't ask why I was here. You didn't ask anything. Each sentence landed carefully, not loud, not emotional, but impossible to ignore. The rich woman's gaze dropped again. I'm sorry, she said almost instinctively. The nanny paused, not reacting immediately, not accepting it, not rejecting it, just letting it exist. You're sorry now, she said quietly. The rich woman flinched slightly, because she understood what that meant. The apology came after the truth, after the humiliation, after the exposure, not before. The nanny looked past her for a moment, toward the street, toward the people who had watched everything unfold, then back at her. Next time, she said, ask first. The words were simple, but they carried weight, not just advice, a correction. The guards stood silently, their presence now almost invisible, their role complete. The gardener resumed his work slowly, but his movements were different now, more careful, more aware. The neighbor stepped back slightly, the moment losing its intensity but not its impact. The nanny turned back toward the mansion. The large doors stood ahead, open, waiting, the place that had always been hers, even when no one else knew it yet. She walked forward again, her steps steady, her posture unchanged. No rush, no hesitation, just quiet ownership. Behind her, the rich woman remained standing outside the gate, the same place where she had just claimed control over everything. But now she didn't step forward. She didn't speak. She didn't move. Because for the first time, she understood exactly where she stood, and it wasn't where she thought it was. The entire scene fell into a heavy silence. The guards stood straighter, their attention now fully on the nanny, treating her with quiet respect. The gardener lowered his gaze and stepped aside, no longer pretending nothing happened. Across the street, the neighbor covered her mouth, still in shock, watching the situation unfold. The rich woman remained outside the gate, frozen, her posture completely changed, no longer confident, no longer in control. Her eyes followed the nanny, but she didn't speak. She didn't stop her, because now she understood everything. The nanny continued walking inside the property, her steps calm and steady, as if nothing unusual had just happened, even though everything had changed. The guards instinctively moved with her, one stepping slightly ahead to open the main path, the other remaining near the gate, now clearly positioned on her side. Their body language had shifted completely. Just minutes ago, they were ready to remove her. Now they were ensuring her access. The rich woman stood outside, still holding the document loosely in her hand, watching the shift happen in real time. Her authority didn't just weaken, it disappeared. Wait, she said again, but her voice carried no power now. The nanny stopped, but didn't fully turn around this time. Only slightly, enough to acknowledge her, without giving the moment back. The rich woman hesitated, then spoke more carefully. I didn't know, she said, trying to recover something, anything. The nanny looked at her calmly. You didn't ask, she replied. The words were quiet, but they landed clearly. The rich woman lowered her eyes, the truth settling in. Around them, everything continued to feel slower, heavier, like the entire scene was adjusting to a new reality. The nanny gave one last look toward the gate, then forward again toward the mansion. No anger, no triumph, just control. Then she continued walking, leaving the woman standing exactly where she had been, but no longer in the same position she thought she held. The nanny walked toward the mansion without looking back, her steps calm and certain, as if she had always belonged there. The large doors opened ahead of her, and she entered without hesitation. Behind her, the gate slowly closed, separating two realities in a single moment. The rich woman remained outside, frozen in silence, the document still in her hands, her confidence completely gone. For the first time, she understood exactly what it feels like to judge someone and be completely wrong.